Welcome to Panama. Let's get historical. I'm here trying to understand how this small country in Central America fits into the larger picture of world history. If you love history, I think you belong here. If I could boil down the main reasons why the Spanish came here in the early 1500s, God, glory, and gold. God, obviously. I mean, come on. We're Roman Catholic, let's not forget. And part of Catholicism is converting as many people as possible. Glory, because let's remember, Spain is not the only country in Europe doing exploring at this time. Everybody is trying to get their hands on a piece of the pie, and Panama is a large, large slice of that pie. And lastly is gold. This is the most obvious one, and it is the most literal one. Gold is going to flow through Panama in abundance. Let's get started. 1521 to 1821, Panama is under the rule of the Spanish. Columbus shows up in 1492, setting off this chain reaction of fellow explorers looking to do the same. One of whom is Vasco Núñez de Balboa, the guy who so-called saw the Pacific Ocean first. Did he see it first? Of course not. Was he the first European to realize that Panama connected the two oceans in a very narrow strip of land? Yes, he was. So as you can tell, we're actually on the Atlantic side of Panama right now. And so, no, we're not. So as you can probably tell, we're actually on the Pacific side of the isthmus right now. The original reason Vasco Núñez de Balboa sets his eyes on Panama is not as a means of crossing the two oceans, but actually as a jumping off point for the conquering of Peru, which our guy Pizarro is going to do very, very shortly. It is only when Balboa notices that this is an isthmus, meaning a small strip of land connecting two large bodies of water, that this place gains this extreme importance. Today we're starting our day here in Panama Viejo, which is the first Spanish city here in Panama. And guess who's here to greet me? None other than Isabella La Católica, Queen Isabella, Christopher Columbus. As soon as the Spanish arrive here, they realize that this can be a perfect little middle point between the silver and gold that are coming out of the mountains in Peru, also Mount Potosi in Bolivia, and we need to find a way to get it to Europe, which is why the Isthmus of Panama is so crucial to the Spanish, because from Peru, you can just take the boat to Panama, and then, instead of having to cross all of South America, you just have to cross the Isthmus. As a result, a lot of gold and silver coming through Panama. A lot of gold and silver equals a lot of money. A lot of money makes people really want to get that money. Who likes money more than anyone? Pirates. And so the British keep sending pirates and pirates and pirates who are stealing gold from the shipments that are coming from Peru and supposed to be going to Europe. Feeling pretty woozy out in this heat. The museum guy was like, it's a kilometer. And I was like, how far is that? Give me miles, dude. I suppose in that sense I'm a bit like an explorer. We're flying by the seat of our we're flying by the seat of our pants here. Don't even look at me like that. And if you think the explorers had it hard, the people that were here before the explorers, well, they had it extremely hard. About estimated 200,000 to 2 million indigenous people of Panama were almost entirely wiped out upon the Spanish arrival. All these guys showing up with their like little European germs, flicking them everywhere. All of a sudden, there is no more indigenous population. They were coming up on the big Papa building, the end-all be-all of Panama Viejo, so it's gonna be worth it. I know it's gonna be worth it. It looks like there are some stairs to climb, so that's everything about Catholic architecture and design is sort of just to emanate this sort of message of I belong here, and I belong at the top. And we're climbing to that top right now. Ooh, breeze, fresh breeze. Worth it. Behind me is the Plaza Mayor, which would have been sort of the main center of things, much like it was in Madrid. So from here, you just kind of are the seat of power. There is no place higher in all of colonial Spain than this tower. It's very important to know that this, where I am right now, is El Casco Viejo, which is the second of the two first Spanish cities that showed up here in Panama. The first one, which is called Old Panama, was destroyed in 1621 by privateer Henry Morgan. You may know him as Captain Morgan. You may have drank his rum before. Don't, he's a pirate. The Spanish had to flee and they set up this new city right here where I am in Casco Viejo. And so what's the first building that you would create in your new town? If you didn't say church, then you don't know what you're talking about. And you don't know how to colonize a country. Otherwise, how are people gonna know that you belong here? God told me I belong here. God told me. Now remember that a large part of the reason that the Spanish came here to the Americas was to convert the natives to Catholicism. The Spanish were the most Catholic under Charles V, and this was also around the time that the Protestant Reformation was happening, so extra need to convert. Pit stop. Guess who sat there? Guess who sat there? Pope Francis. Pope Francis. What I want you to keep in mind, though, is that these depictions of Jesus and his followers are all very much through the lens of a European mind. Okay, so you get Jesus who is white. When we get to Cologne, though, you will see more of that syncretic element come in, where we will actually see face-to-face a black Jesus, which is the site of a major pilgrimage every year. Okay, this might sound crazy, but I've never actually seen post-cross Jesus. And like, I guess they just sort of like put him down on a bed. This whole church is like telling the story of Jesus' death. Here's your boy taking the cross up the mountain. There's Pontius Pilate. Boo. You can kind of see the different stages of the crucifixion. We're here approaching our first mirador, which is a lookout spot. Here's my taxi driver, absolute legend, decided he's gonna wait with me. Just an absolute beast. Can't thank him enough for everything he's done. King is king.
Increíble.
What we've been waiting for, the boats. Boats.
Ooh, hashtag first boat, hashtag first big cargo boat that we've seen on this trip. Hashtag wow.
Ooh, look at those boats. Mira el barco, señor, los barcos. We're gonna head to Portobello, the final port that Peruvian silver would stop at before making its journey to Europe. Remember, it leaves Peru, it goes to the Pacific side of Panama because there's no canal yet, and then human beings walk it across Panama, all the way to Portobello, where it's then put on another set of ships and it is sent to Spain. So let's go check out that fort, that port, and also a little bit of religious syncretism. Let's go. So I came all the way here to Portobello, which is about 2.5 hours from Panama City. We're actually lucky enough to witness the only Black Christ that I know of in existence. It's reshaping classic Christian figures in the mind and through the lens of the people who actually live here. Interestingly though, young Mary is white and handcuffed. So, somebody explain that to me. Mary had a little lamb. Sorry, that might have been sacrilegious of me to do. So these are the ruins of the Santiago Battery here in Portobello. The Spanish set up unbelievably strong fortifications here in Portobello because they knew that other Europeans, especially the British pirates, had extreme interest in the gold and silver that was flowing through here on the daily. Behind me is the reason the Spanish Empire was able to grow so fast and so strong. Gunpowder, something that nobody in the Americas had at the time. So with a combination of, well, I'm gonna quote Jared Diamond's book here, guns, germs, and steel, you had the steel, the armor, sort of the least important, but also what allowed these cannons to be built. Germs, we talked about that, smallpox, and lastly here is guns. Fuerte San Jeronimo. Fuerte San Jeronimo. It's Canal Day, yeah, you heard me right, yeah, that's right. We've driven about, it's in kilometers, so I don't actually know how far we are. But it took us about an hour to get from the Atlantic side to the Pacific, from the Pacific side to the Atlantic side. We are headed to the Gatun Locks, which was the recently expanded locks to fit like the Supermax cargo boats. So I am on my knees praying that we get to see some big boys today. Because if not, what the heck am I doing here? I came here for the big boys. Okay, out my window, we are starting to see traces of trade. And as you know, I'm here for trade! Let's chat really briefly about Panama post-Spain, because let's remember here, the Spanish get kicked out of Latin America in the early 1800s. Who was responsible for this liberation? Well, none other than Simón Bolívar. Daddy! This man who lived during the 1800s in South America. Now, he is of Spanish descent, meaning he is white. Who does he care about? He cares about the white Latin Americans called Creoles, right? So they are of Spanish heritage living in Latin America, and they have less rights than the Spanish-born people living in South America. Simón Bolívar does not care about the mestizos, the slaves, the mulattoes, everyone below him. Not important. What he cares about is getting political and economic freedom from Spain. So what's Simón Bolívar going to do next? He has just freed an entire continent. So he is going to, in his dreams, unite all of this land into one singular country called Gran Colombia. Now this is somewhat of a success because he gets 4 countries to join, and this lasts for about 11 or so years. Panama is now under the rule of Simón Bolívar and Gran Colombia, which may seem like a bit of a victory, but it is now signaling to the rest of the colonizing European world that this place is now kind of up for grabs and fair game now that Spain is gone. And who's been dreaming about building a canal in Panama for a very long time? Why, the French, of course. Namely, Ferdinand de Lesseps, otherwise known as the Great Frenchman. Was he so great? Nah, but what he did do was build the Suez Canal. That's pretty impressive, right? And so then he was like, I can build another one. I'm gonna build 2 canals. And so he comes here to Panama, and he briefly spends a couple of days being like, yep, perfect, don't need any more information. We're building a canal here. And so he tries, and guess what happens? It is a complete catastrophe. Oh, you're wondering why the Panama Canal was so much harder to build than the Suez Canal. Let me learn you a thing or two. So here's Panama, right? It's the bridge between South America and North America. On the south side, you have the Pacific. On the north, the Atlantic. Now there's this huge piece of land in between those 2 oceans, unlike with the Suez Canal in Egypt, in which case there was no continental divide. It was just Red Sea, Mediterranean, and a little bit of land in between. So, Lesseps has to either somehow get the water to rise up and then the boats can cross, or he has to remove the piece of land entirely. The second option was his choice. He literally tried to dig up a continent. It so didn't work that it's crazy. Give some credit to the Americans, who did the opposite of what Lesseps did. See, what Lesseps wanted to do was to carve out all of this land. Instead, what the Americans did was they were like, screw it, let's just flood it, which will allow the boats to cross. Teddy Roosevelt really represented this kind of new imperialism, one where the country doesn't go in and conquer the land, but rather just exploits it from afar, sort of economically, which is exactly what Teddy Roosevelt wanted to do. He didn't want to put his soldiers in Panama. He didn't want to move Americans to Panama. What he wanted was access to the financial beauty that this place held in its very land. When you hear people saying that Panama got its independence in 1903, well, not really. It got its independence in 1903 from Gran Colombia with the help of the United States. The United States wasn't doing it to be kind. What did they want in return? Of course, access to the canal. And so, for almost 100 years, the canal was under the control of the Americans, who were directly profiting off of what was truly just Panamanian land. Panamanian Betsy Ross. What up? So if you ask the rest of the country, they might say that the true independence was in 1999 when control of the canal was passed back to the Panamanians.
Hola, ¿qué tal?
No puedo ver.
No, sí, lo ves.
In the 90s, while America still had possession of the canal, they were only allowed to fly the American flag up there until several students, Panamanian students, climbed up one night and put the Panamanian flag up there, resulting in the deaths of 25 students, which sort of galvanized the Panamanian country as well as the rest of the world in the movement for independence. She snuck me into this absolutely government-sealed spot. Ooh, so we can get a visit of this big old boat. Okay. We up in that zona prohibida, that prohibited zone. She's getting me as close as she can to this canal, man. All I want to do is get as close as I can. Putting in work. She's getting me in this canal. I don't know how, but she's gonna get me on this canal. Behind me is the Panama Canal. That's a big old boat with probably a lot of good stuff in it heading your way. Gracias.
De nada.
I'm bubbling. I feel like a kid in a candy shop. I'm bugging. So what we're looking at right here is the Gatun Lake. This is an artificial lake. There is a dam. They flooded this entire area. All these trees here, you should be able to see these full trees here. But this is an artificial lake. This is what they made so that the boats could cross.
So we were talking about the different conditions in the area of navigation as we previously
that way is where we came from. That is the way to the Pacific side. So this guy, this globe atlas guy, he is coming from the Pacific. Now, the Pacific is lower than Panama. So he had to be risen up to the level of Gatun Lake, and then he's going to cross, and he's going to end up right here at these locks. And what these locks are, this is the miracle. This is the Panama Canal. This is how you get a boat that is not at sea level to be at sea level.
Almost ready to open.
Yeah, see? Ooh. You know, you dream about days like today. You don't necessarily think they're gonna come, but you hope they do. So this first gate is opening. That boat over there is gonna make its way into this little filling area here. What's the crazy part that's gonna happen next is the water level is going to literally decrease, allowing the boat to lower its level, much like this one that just passed through. It is at a lower altitude than that boat is, simply because of this beautiful, beautiful engineering design that lowers the water level and raises it back up. Although this may seem like a drawn-out process, that takes a while. I mean, that boat's been there for what seems like an hour. The alternative is going around the entire continent of South America. So talk about the time you're saving, the money you're saving, the energy you're saving. I mean, come on. You can see the difference in water level between these two locks. And this boat is now back to sea level and heading out of the Panama Canal. How gosh dang lucky are we to be seeing this? Hola, barco!
Se escuchó bajito, querido visitante. Vamos una vez más.
Locks are coming back out. They are going to literally lock this boat inside of this little area where the water level will then be decreased, allowing the boat to enter the next lock. There he goes, just in time for the next papa to show up.
Mira, la iguana.
Iguana, stop.
Approaching the house of the administrator of the canal. So kind of no greater position in the country of Canal for an American to have. This is the house. Hola, señor. Bien, gracias.
Si vas a tomar foto o video desde la calle, por favor.
Sí, claro.
Te agradezco.
Gracias.
Gracias.
All right, not allowed to film here. Just fair. I guess it's a pretty big, important house, but whatever.
Vamos a esperar que empiece la música. Si quieres vamos a bailar hoy. Y vas a ir conmigo. Yeah, di que sí.
Before dinner, I'm currently heading off to the French Quarter. I don't even think that I look like a tourist, so good luck spotting me. Because even though it was really, Panama was under Spain's rule, Panama was sort of indirectly under America's rule, they were never under French rule. Nonetheless, the French had a very large hand in the first attempt to create a canal here in Panama. It did not work, as we discussed. Lesseps absolutely botched the whole thing. I'm trying to be there, and I'm not there, so it seems I've gone the wrong way. But that's just fun in travel, you know, getting a little bit lost. These are the loudest birds I've ever heard in my entire life. There is no way they made a statue to Lesseps. Bro. Dude, you totally effed up the canal, man. How can you do this? You put him front and center, two in front of the freaking obelisk, man. The guy messed up the canal. On the plaque, it says, this is in memory of the French, the pioneers of the interoceanic canal. And I've got a couple problems with this. And sorry, I'm gonna sit on the monument. The pioneers of the canal is interesting, notably because I believe hardly any French people actually worked on the original effort to dig a canal. It was largely the few indigenous people that were left, or it was the ancestors of former slaves. You have this eclectic mix of people who are living and dying for this canal, none of whom are really French. They look just like Miami, but it is pretty. It's pretty. I think it looks nice.